The South Carolina State Supreme Court set to hear Murdoch's appeal tomorrow. I hear Murdoch is actually not going to be in court for that, which I thought was interesting. Uh, what do you think about this in general and the fact that this has made it to the Supreme Court?
Well, I mean, it's not uncommon, Brooke, for uh, convictions to be appealed. It's more uncommon if you plead guilty and then try to appeal. But since you have a jury trial and you are convicted, most defendants will avail themselves of their right to appeal, which is an important right. Um, in this particular case, there are two issues that the court's going to weigh in on. The first is the financial crimes and the financial misdeeds that just Judge Newman admitted in front of the jury. The defense says that those were improper character references, bad character references, and that the risk is that Alex was convicted not so much on the murder evidence, but because he was such a scoundrel and stole millions and millions of dollars from his clients. Motive is not an element of murder in our state and in any state, but the jury still wants to know what would be the reason why a husband would kill his wife and his son. You know, unfortunately, in our society, spouses kill each other all the time, but parents rarely kill children. And Judge Newman let in about four different financial matters because they were close in time to the June 7th, 2021 murders, and that the state argued were reasons why Alex ended up killing Maggie and Paul. The first one was in connection with my client, Tony Satterfield. I represent Tony and his brother, Brian Harriet, who were the heirs to their mother, Gloria Satterfield. She died on February 26th of 2018, and a claim was brought against Alex for the wrongful death of Gloria that happened on the Mizell property. We all know that he stole with Corey Fleming $4.3 million, which was recovered. But in April of 2021, 2 months before the murders, there was an article written by my co-host, Mandy Matney, in the Island Packet News about a $500,000 settlement that was realized by Alex and Corey in connection with Gloria's death. And so Tony called Alex on the phone when he was told of that and said, "Hey, I heard that there's $500,000 that was recovered in my mother's death. How come we haven't gotten anything?" Alex said, "It's not true. The article's wrong. We're still negotiating. Insurance companies are tough. I think I'll have more answers for you in the fall." So now that was Alex realizing that there is somebody out there that knows that he got money and they didn't get any of it. The second thing was Alex borrowed money from Palmetto State Savings Bank a couple weeks before the murder. And as a requirement for that loan, Maggie was having to guarantee that loan, personally guarantee it along with Alex. Well, of course, after Alex got the money, he calls Maggie on the phone and says, Maggie, who's down at Edisto, "Hey, hon, you got to come and you got to sign these loan papers to guarantee the loan." Well, we all know what Maggie said at the time. Maggie said, "I'm not signing those. I'm not obligating myself to anything." So now he knows that he's in trouble with Palmetto State Bank because he already had spent the money that he borrowed, and Maggie was not going to guarantee the loan. Then on June 2nd, Jeannie Seckinger, who was the CFO of the Murdaugh law firm, came into his office. And she said, "There's $675,000 missing in a settlement that you had with your friend Chris Wilson. Where's that money?" Well, fortuitously, the phone rang and it was the hospital saying that Alex's dad was sick. And so that meeting ended. The last thing that Judge Newman let in as well was Mark Tinsley testifying that on June 10th, 3 days after the murder happened, there was supposed to be a hearing where he was trying to have the court hold Alex in contempt of court in the Mallory Beach civil case for failing to turn over financial documents. So all of those things were introduced by the state as reasons why Alex chose to kill Maggie and his son Paul. Do I think that the Supreme Court is going to reverse for that? I do not. The second issue, though, is a little more sticky. The second issue is the juror interference issue of Becky Hill. And since the hearing, with Justice Toll that took place in January of 2024, and I represented 6 of those seated jurors at that hearing. Becky Hill has pled guilty to crimes of moral turpitude, of abusing her office and abuse of trust. And the issue is, Justice Toll held that notwithstanding that there could have been some improper statements made by Becky Hill during the trial to the jury, that Alex was not trustworthy, don't believe what he said, or his eyes are, look at his eyes. We all know that a clerk of court or any party bailiff can only talk about ministerial stuff with a jury. What time are we going to eat lunch? Where are we going to eat lunch? What time do you have to be in court? But no discussions with the jury can be had about the actual merits of the case or somebody's credibility, whether they're believable or not. So my 6 jurors testified, not only did they not hear her say anything, but even if she had, it had no impact on their verdicts. Remember, Brooke, all 12 jurors raised their hands after the verdict was announced, verdicts, and said, this was my own free will. I wasn't under duress or coercion. I listened to the evidence, I listened to the testimony, and I'm voting my conscience. My 6 jurors said they did. 5 other jurors who I didn't represent also testified and said, no, nothing I ever heard Becky Hill say was improper. And even if she did, we voted our conscience and he was guilty. The 12th juror, along with the egg lady alternate, the 12th juror kind of vacillated back and forth. She gave a number of affidavits that kind of conflicted with each other. And she said she did hear Becky Hill say things about Alex that were improper and against the judge's instructions. And she said she felt coerced with her verdict. Justice Toll held that she was not credible because of her conflicting affidavits. Justice Toll also said, I find Becky Hill not to be credible on all subjects. But Justice Toll applied a state standard for juror interference. The defense argued that there should be the federal standard that applied, called the Remmer standard. The Remmer standard merely says all you have to show is interference with the jury by a third party. And if you could show that, you get a new trial. Justice Toll held that the State versus Green standard applied, which is one prong more. Not only do you have to show the interference by Becky Hill with the jury, but you would have to prove that it affected the jurors' votes. And she says, I do not see that happening. Now, do I think the state Supreme Court is going to reverse the former Chief Justice? I don't think so. But however, when this gets to the federal level, under habeas corpus, or if Alex appeals to the federal courts, I think he's going to have a more receptive ear in the federal courts, because there's an argument that the right to a fair and impartial jury trial is a Sixth Amendment constitutional right. And therefore, if it's a constitutional right, the federal standard, Remmer, should apply. And it's possible that he will be granted a new trial. Does that worry me? No. Why? Well, I think he's going to be convicted again. But 2, I spent 3 years getting him convicted of those financial crime cases. And I argued in October of 2021 that he shouldn't be granted bail. And he's never gotten out of jail or prison since the day that Judge Newman agreed with me and denied him bond. And so now he's got 27 years to do in state prison, of which he has to do 23. He's 56 years old, Brooke. So that means he's got to make it to 79 in maximum security prison with all the bad food, all the health problems, plus the danger. And if he makes it to 79, then he gets out and walks across the street to the federal prison, where he's got to do 40 years after pleading guilty in front of Judge Gergel. So Alex is never going to be able to prey on society again. He's never getting out. But I do understand that he would rather serve his time as a thief than a murderer of a wife and a son. And I understand the importance to Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin that they want that conviction reversed and they want to retry it again. Because I think Dick Harpootlian has suffered mightily as a result of that conviction and his performance at that trial. You know, Dick came into that trial like a lion, but he came out of that trial like a lamb. It wasn't his best work, let's put it that way. Whether it was a long trial, 6 weeks, the man's 74 years old. It's tiring for anybody. It's tiring for young lawyers that are in their 30s trying a case for 6 weeks and working all night after you're out of court. So I think they want a new trial. I don't think they'll get that from our Supreme Court, but I could be wrong. But I think there's a better chance that they may get it from a federal court or the United States Supreme Court.
So if the South Carolina Supreme Court determines like no retrial for you, like we don't see the need for a new trial, they could then go to the federal Supreme Court.
Right. They're going to go to the federal system, and he's going to allege ineffective assistance of counsel on behalf of by Dick and Jim. Defendants always do that. And Dick will end up falling on the sword for that and say, maybe I made a mistake. You know, we as lawyers will do anything we can for our clients to help them get justice. I think justice was done. I think he's a guilty man. His lawyers differ. They do. That's what makes horse races. But I think that he was guilty. I think they proved it beyond a reasonable doubt. I think the circumstantial evidence of the kennel video, the Snapchat video of the sunflower trees. I think the fact that he lied to his son for 2 years about being at the kennels when he lied to Buster about, the video. I think, having clean clothes when the police arrived. If my wife and son were lying on the ground bleeding, I would be hugging them. And so I would have blood and dirt all over me, waiting 42 minutes to call Buster after he discovered and telling Buster to come home instead of saying, hey, Buster, stay away. Go to the police because there's killers out there that are trying to annihilate our family. But to me, there's two most important facts that show his guilt. One, in 102 jailhouse phone calls, Alex never was screaming from the rooftops, I'm innocent. What are you guys doing to try to get me out of here and find the real killers? Instead, he wanted to talk about football, hunting deer, and all a bunch of other stuff. The second thing is the most important to me, is that two executioners who are going to come onto your property in the South at the dark of night are going to come onto your property without any guns, and they're going to break into your house and steal your guns to kill your wife and kid. Most executioners I know have their own weapons, because if you walk onto somebody's property, Brooke, in the deep South at the dark of the night, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to get shot by those people, or two, some dog at that house is going to bite you to bits. You're not going on that property if you're going to kill without your own weapons. So I think there's so much circumstantial evidence that was so powerful, and circumstantial evidence is just as good as direct evidence. So I think he will be convicted again if he gets a new trial. And listen, it is important to the public. Rules of evidence, rules of law, rules of procedure are very technical, and they want right or wrong, and they want all the information to come in that could be sifted through by the jury. But the reason that our system is so good is it doesn't only work for the best of us, it works for the worst of us. And certainly Alex is the worst of us. And our system has to work equally for the best and the worst.